Sorry. I was not expecting that to happen. Good morning, everyone. So today, Sensei asked that I talk about the Gobun Show. So to start off, while I'm pretty sure almost everybody here has heard about what the Gobun Show is, for those of you that don't know, those of you that are just joining us for the first time, I will explain. The Gobun Show is a collection of letters written by Rennyo Shonin, the 8th Gomonshu of Nishi Honganji, our mother temple in Kyoto. Now that we're back in the Hondo, I can say this. Rennyo Shonin, facing Amida, is on the left. Over there. This side is, anyone? Shinran Shonin, good job. Now, I could talk a lot about Rennyo, but today we're going to focus in on the Gobun Show. Throughout his life, Rennyo wrote 260 known letters. Out of these 260, 85 were chosen by one of Rennyo's grandsons, Rennyo, as letters that contained important teachings of Jodo Shinshu. 4 of these 85 letters are called the Letters of Summer, or Ge no Ofumi, and 1 was called Gozokusho, or the biographical letter of Shinran Shonin. The remaining 80 letters were compiled into 5 fascicles, or volumes, if you don't know what a fascicle is. In this 80 letters, 5 volume is what we call the Gobun Show. Each volume or fascicle contains roughly between 10 to 15, maybe more letters. You may also hear them referred to as ofumi, which is what they are called in the Higashi Honganji tradition. Gobun Show itself means writings or letters. We use the go, the honorific prefix, similar to gomonshu, and then bunsho, which means writings or letters. So just a poll for those of you that are here today, how many people knew that that's what the Gobun Show was? Like, of the letters, 80 are actually what we call Gobun Show. Just raise your hand. 1, 2, 4, 5. Okay. A good amount of people. Most of them are ministers and then Joe. But that's okay. But here's a fun fact. And I know that everybody was just waiting for this. All 85 of these letters can be found in this book. Our new Seattle Betsuin translation of the Gobun Show. Limited supply available. I'm sure that Joe will come up after service and announce more about this, but it's all here. See, it says on the front, this is hard to see, I'm now realizing because you guys are far away from me, but Gobun Show completed 5-volume version, Ge no Ofumi, Letters of Summer, and then Gozokusho, the biographical letter on Shinran Shonin. Okay. Rennyo wrote these letters to spread the Nembutsu teaching in a way that everyone could understand. They were simple lessons, and the target audience was the everyday person, the peasants, the uneducated. You didn't have to be a scholar or a priest to understand these lessons. You could just sit and listen and learn. I think that we've heard other ministers, senseis talk about this, but really, if we think about Shinran Shonin's master work, the Kyogyo Shinsho, that was really written and read only by priests and monks, the highly educated. It was written in classical Chinese. The contents were very complex. The commentary was complex and difficult for the ordinary person to understand. Believe me, I know. I chose the opening meditation quote for Scout Sunday, and it came from the collected works of Shinran. But do you really think that I read the collected works of Shinran to find that quote? I did not. That quote actually came from this manga about Shinran Shonin's life, which you should read. It's really good. It's on page 2 of the manga. But that's not to say that you shouldn't read it. Thinking more about the Gobun Show, I realized something, and I'm sure that this is a realization that you've probably all had yourself as well. Unless you're attending a service at the Nishi Honganji in Japan, where reading of the Gobun Show is a part of the normal service program, we actually don't hear Gobun Show being read that much. Usually it's at a funeral or memorial service. And I could be wrong, but I think that in all of BCA temples, Gobun Show readings are not really a part of a typical Sunday service. No offense to sensei or any of the ministers, it's just not something that was incorporated when the ministers came over Japan and established here in America. When we do hear the letters read, either in Japanese or the English translation, it's usually just one of two letters. Granted, they're very important letters. So who has an idea of who knows what the first letter is? Just guess. Anyone? I heard it. Hakotsu no sho, white ashes, correct. Which is typically read at funerals or memorial service. Okay, and then there's one other letter that we typically hear. Does anybody know what it is? Anyone? Okay. It's the teachings of Shinran, Shonin Ichiru no Sho. For those of you that attended the closing Itaikyo service at our joint National Council meeting, Northwest District Convention, Shonin Ichiru was the letter that Reverend Sarah Parrott from the White River Buddhist Temple recited during that service. Now, if you read the postscript of the new foreword of our Gobonsho translation book that was written by Joe, he mentions there's one other English translation book that is worth reading. If you've also talked to my dad recently, he's talked a lot about this book as well, and that book is called, hold on, it's a little heavy. This is a lot of show and tell of Dharma talk, I understand. Living with Thanks, the Gojo Ofumi, the five-fascicle version of Rennyo Shonin's letters. This book was written and translated by Reverend Kemyo Taira Sato. And it contains a translation of just the 80 letters that makes up the Gobunsho. It also has his commentary, so each letter is translated into English, and then he has a short chapter on commentary about it as well, which is why this book is significantly thicker than our version, which just contains the letters themselves. However, as my dad and Joe has mentioned, he recommends reading our translation first, just the letters, because the larger book is very, very scholarly. It might be more difficult to understand. So since we were just talking about Shonin Ichiru, I thought it'd be interesting to compare the two translations. It's not a very long letter, so I'm going to read both from each book. So to start, I'm going to start with Living with Thanks. So this is Fascicle 5, Volume 5, Letter 10. The Essential Teachings of Shin Buddhism. What is taught by Shonin in this tradition is that faith is absolutely essential. This is because when we throw away all the miscellaneous practices and single-heartedly take refuge in Amida Buddha, our birth is assured by the Buddha through the inconceivable working of his original vow. Attaining this state of mind is also explained as entering the company of those whose birth is rightly assured. At the time the one thought moment is awakened, our nembutsu, or pronouncing the Buddha's name, that follows, should be understood as the nembutsu of gratitude for the fact that the Tathagata has assured our birth by virtue of all that he has done for us. Most humbly and respectfully. Okay, that was Living with Thanks. Now we'll move to our Seattle Betsuin translation. Shonin Ichiru no Sho, chapter on Shinran Shonin's teachings, Shonin Shinran Shinings of Jodo Shinshu. Shinjin, faith, is the core of Jodo Shinshu as taught by the Shonin. The reason for this is that by abandoning all sundry practices and relying on Amida Buddha with the singleness of heart, our deliverance is assured by the Buddha through the incomprehensible power of the original vow. This status of being assured of a deliverance is known as entrusting the ranks of the truly assured at the very instant of Shinjin awakening. Believe that all subsequent nembutsu becomes the nembutsu of thanksgiving to the Tathagata for this assurance of our birth in the Pure Land. With reverence, I remain. So they're the same letter, but slightly different. For example, our translation mentions Shinjin, and Reverend Sato's does not. It just says faith. When you listen to them, maybe one version is a little bit easier for you to understand, or you grasp it a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to take a deep dive into this right now, because we could talk about Gobunsho and this letter in particular for a long time, but I do think that it's interesting to look at the translations holistically as a whole, comparing both of them. And maybe by reading both, we can understand a little bit more together if the vocab in one, the written syntax of one Doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe by reading multiple versions and translations, you can grasp a little bit better. And of course, this is something that if you have questions, you can feel free to talk to our ministerial staff about. I lost my place. But speaking of Shonin Ichiru, sorry. This, I think, is probably the letter that's been translated into English the most. And by that, I mean it has the most English translations because of its importance to Jodo Shinshu. So circling back, I really think that this is one of the largest significance of our Gobuncho translation, because from what we can tell, this is the first time that all 85 letters have been translated from Japanese to English. Decades of work. Now, have I read all of Rennyo's letters? No. Joe's shaking his head like yes, because I know he has, but I have not. But now I can, because I have our book of translation, the letters, and I encourage everyone to read through the Gobuncho, because we, meaning the lay members of the temple, we are the intended target of these letters. Not to say that we're peasants and uneducated, but these are simple lessons that were written for us to spread the Nembutsu teachings. And so to close, I just want to add my gratitude and my appreciation to everybody that made this book possible, past and present. It's an amazing feat. It's a culmination of work. If you have questions about the history of this translation project, please talk to Joe Gochi. He will talk about it for a very long time. That's not a bad thing. I'm just saying he knows the history super well, much better than I. So, okage-sama de arigato. So in closing, please join me in Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namon Dubs. Namon Dubs.